Okay, we have the standard version. So basically from that crow or frog pose position and then pushing up into your handstand. So that's the goal for most people, but how do we progress it? How do we make it harder and how do we make it easier? So today I'm gonna go through the easiest variation. I'm gonna go all the way up to that one and then beyond that one to the harder variations. I'm gonna go through a little bit of detail with each one, and ideally you should be able to use that as a stepping stone process to get higher and higher and progress through the skill. So I'm gonna run through eccentric wall assist, eccentric single leg, less depth, momentum. Crow to handstand would be the middle. Once you've got the crow to handstand, we can slow it down, make it harder. We can go more deep, more depth, go deeper. And then we can play with the lower hip position. So going towards more that 90-degree handstand push-up position. So what are the prerequisites? Obviously we need a crow. Now the crow needs to be nice and stable. We need to be able to move it around. And we need to try and have more weight into the hands and shoulders and less weight into the legs. So what I mean about that is we don't want to be like this. So now I've got all the weight into my legs and it's like I'm just weighing down on the elbows. We want to try and have it the other way around so that we've got more weight in the hands and shoulders, less weight in the legs. Now for some of you, what that'll mean is you need to take the shoulders down a little bit, get the hips up a little bit higher, and basically just push harder with the arms. And then depending on which variation we're going to go on, we obviously need to have some sort of handstand. Now that can be a freestanding one, so obviously that's the goal for most people, but you can do this up against the wall. So if any of the movements are challenging from a balance perspective or from a confidence point of view, having your back towards the wall is going to help. Now let's start off with the easiest variation. Now with the easier variations, we want to try and get as close to the real thing as we can. So if we're mimicking the movement, so say it's the eccentric and we're coming down slowly, it should look like the concentric. So if I videoed it and put it back the correct way, so backwards, but it's actually the right way, it should look like the real thing. Now where most people are going to start is this eccentric against the wall. So what I need to do here is get confident to take the body to the wall without collapsing. What we don't want to do is take the body to the wall and collapse like this. I want to make sure that I'm staying nice and pushed so I have good elevation. I'm strong in that position. If I'm not, it could be because of hand position, it could be because my hands are too far away from the wall, or we just don't have enough strength through there. So we want to try and build that confidence and strength and get better at the positioning. We can do repetitions there. So I've externally rotated the hands and I'm pushing up into the wall. Once I get to a confident position there and I feel like I'm pushing into the wall, I'm going to bring the legs down. When I get to this stage, I'm going to try and keep the legs closer to the wall because it's easier and the lever arm's not pulling me off the wall. I'm going to try and push my low back into the wall. Now I'm going to go through mid-back, upper back, and come down slowly. So start to build confidence and control all the way down there and play with the distance away from the wall with your hands. If I move the hands a little bit further away, it's going to allow me to lean against the wall more and I can bring my legs down and it's going to feel easier. The harder bit though is now my distance is bigger, so it's more likely to collapse into the middle and it's going to be harder on the wrists. Now, because we are trying to get down into the crow position, there will be a point where we start to bend the elbows to give myself a shelf to get my knees to. So I've gone a little bit wider this time. That will give me a little bit more confidence and control at the bottom. Now when I come down, push the low back in. Notice the arms are starting to bend. And I'm just going to see if I can find my elbows with my knees. I'm still pushing into the wall. But you could call that a crow position. Head gets in the way a little bit and then come down with control. Exactly the same, but now freestanding. So have a nice controlled loose handstand. So you notice my legs are loose. I'm not worried about being in a pretty straight line here because I want to make it a little bit ugly by bending things, which is the elbows, rounding the back, keeping the knees bent nice and close to the hands in terms of stacking. See if I can come down as slow as possible and find the elbows. Now you'll find with this one, you're more likely to fall towards underbalance and it makes you heavy in this direction and things happen really quickly. So you'll find you'll collapse down and either land heavy on your elbows or you'll just fall back onto your feet. So what we need to do there is try and push our hips a little bit further that way and round as much as we can. Bending the arms a little bit earlier might help, but you just have to work out that timing of bending the elbows, taking the head and shoulders forwards, but also rolling the spine down, trying to find your elbows. Now in terms of the concentric, you can play with this on the eccentric as well. We can bring one leg down or up, which makes it obviously easier. So I could lift one leg up and then push from there. Same on the eccentric, I can bring one leg down. I do find this one's a little bit easier to, I do find this one's a little bit harder to coordinate in terms of the balance as you come down, but it definitely, there's less load. Okay, then we can start to look at the concentric on the way going back up. Now you could have back to wall here, or you could be freestanding. There's two ways I can really modify this to make it easier or harder. So one is depth here, so less depth should be easier, but obviously it depends on your balance and control on that range. But if I don't bend the arms so much, so if I'm more here and come up, it should be slightly easier than being deeper, so head closer to the floor and coming up. And then the other thing, and you'll notice that there I used it a little bit, was momentum. So how much I make that seesaw help me by bringing the shoulders down and the hips up and pushing at the same time. So if I'm here, shoulders come down, hips come up, I can use that momentum to help catapult me up. Just be careful if you have been doing that one with your back to wall, because you'll be used to going over towards the wall. That'll tend to make you fall too far over towards overbalance. And you might tend to go up and then kick over the top. Now, obviously to catch the handstand, we want to be going more straight up, but don't forget that overbalance helps us. So falling slightly in these handstand push-up type movements is easier if we go towards overbalance, because you're not going to be as heavy, but you just do need to control that and not backsplat. So ideally the momentum is going to take, so the shoulders coming down, hips coming up, I'll ride that momentum up to handstand. So the energy is, even if it spills over, it's spilling over up instead of over. So then once you've got your standard crow to handstand, how do we make it harder? One way is just to slow that down. So whatever momentum we're using, basically you just take that out completely, and you can play around with starting the push at different positions. So I could go here, stop, lift the feet off. See, that's going really slow. Now that's harder from a strength point of view. In some ways it's easier to balance, but it's definitely harder. You're not being helped by momentum to get you up. I could go for more depth. So previously we used the one where we used less depth to make it easier. More depth is going to make it harder for most people. So from that position, if now I take the head very close to the floor, then push out from there, it's obviously going to be harder because I have a bigger range of motion. And then we can start to open the body up before we start to come up. So using more of like a 90-degree movement. So 90-degree handstand push-up type thing. So we're in that crow position, and then I'm going to start to open the body out before I come up. Notice that one is in straddle, so it's slightly easier. And then with the hardest variation being to go into more of a straight body. I'll see if I can get a straight body one. So there, straight body, up, ooh, big push to there. So let me know in the comments which variations that you can do, which ones you're working towards, and if you have any questions, and I'll speak to you next time. Thanks, guys.